So this man was a scoundrel, by the way, a real womanizer. His name was Dante Gabriel Rossetti, and he was the leader of a revolutionary artistic movement in the 1840s. There were three of them. One was Rossetti, one was his friend Millet, whose artwork is over here, two paintings here, and the third one was, I can't remember his name now, oops, I'll remember it later. Okay, he was born around the corner by here as well. They signed their canvases with secret initials that no one knew what it meant. The letters were P.R.B. It finally came out later, someone blabbed the story. Can anyone tell me here what that meant?
The Brotherhood?
Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. Why call themselves pre-Raphaelite? It was because they felt that Raphael, who was one of the greatest of the Renaissance artists, along with people like Michelangelo, Donatello, etc., the Ninja Turtles, basically, were decadent. They were moving away from their ideal, which was more of medieval art. Medieval art tended to be more about natural things, some religious elements, but also using normal people that weren't made to look beautiful. And in the early days, they would use their models from people they found working in shops. So, for example, Rossetti himself, his muse at the beginning was a woman called Lizzie Siddal. She was working in a hat shop. And she turned out to be an incredibly talented artist herself, by the way, as well, under his encouragement too. But he was living in sin with her near Blackfriars Station. He refused to marry her until she got so ill that her parents insisted he make her into a virtuous woman before she died. So they had their wedding, and then she recovered. So he was stuck with her. But no, actually, he was very supportive in many ways. But he was a womanizer, drug addict, alcoholic, very, very handsome man, long flowing hair, etc. And he loved being a mouthpiece for the movement. So, in fact, in his own lifetime, he very rarely exhibited. He was much better known as a poet, as also an ideas person. And he reminds me a little bit, possibly, of like Russell Brand, you know, in terms of that image, etc. And his women treating wasn't good either. So he had. So after she recovered, a few years later, she had a terrible miscarriage. She was very depressed, and he had addicted her to the drug laudanum as well. So she took an overdose. She actually killed herself. She wrote a suicide note, which he hid when she found her body. And in a fit of romantic gesture, in her tomb, he placed the sole copy of his latest manuscript of poems, which he had not published. Now, 7 years later, he regretted this so much that he had her body dug up and the poems retrieved from her clasp. Actually, they were next to her head, wrapped in her long red hair, and they had to be disinfected for a week before they could eventually be published. That's the sort of man he was. So, the Pre-Raphaelites, this one is one of his later works, and he had a different muse this time, because Lizzie Siddal, his wife, had died. This woman was called Alexa Wilding. In 1873, he had about 10 years left to live. At this point, he was living in the house of his great friend, a man called William Morris. William Morris was a leader of the arts and crafts movement, a socialist, a designer, a book printer, etc. in Kelmscott. And we think that he knew about this, but essentially, at the time when he made his painting, Rossetti was having an affair with his wife, Jane Morris, living together. And he painted this. He also used their daughter, May Morris, as the model for the two angels here as well. So keep it in the family to that extent. And what are we looking at? So it's a very typical pre-Raphaelite, later pre-Raphaelite pose, in that she's quite idealized. She's got very, very pale skin. Now, having a tan at this time meant that you were a farmer, peasant, you know, dirty-handed son of toil, etc. This is a beauty sign. You've also got these luscious red lips, piercing eyes, which, like a recruiting sergeant, supposed to follow you around the room, and an elongated neck. She's not wearing the corsets or bodices associated with the very tight-laced Victorian women at the time. It's free-flowing, it's languorous, it's eroticized. There's something. He never left a key for his painting, so we don't really know what he intended it to mean. He did call it the greenest painting ever made. He said it was one of his favorite paintings. It was one of a series that was commissioned by a wealthy city-based financier for his Kensington mansion, all of which contained a musical instrument. So another one had a guitar, a piano, etc. as well. And look at the painting itself. the background and the foreground almost flow into each other. Very little sense of, it's quite claustrophobic in that sense. You're surrounded by plants that are going in on you. There's only a tiny bit of sky here. The rest of it is all green and blue. And he believed that, well, the Victorians believed that there was a language of flowers, like a vocabulary. They were all associated with different emotions. So, for example, these are hyacinths and roses, and they're to do with passion. And they're at the peak of their bloom as well. They're about to expire in their generative phase. You've also got plants at the bottom here. Now, he wanted to paint aconite, which is a very poisonous plant, used in homeopathy nowadays, but he didn't get the right flower. He actually painted larkspur, which is a generally harmless plant. It was meant to represent the bitter pangs of denied passion, and of frustrated emotion. We've also got here bits of blue on the harp frame as well. You have here the birds painted on the frame too, and we'll come back to these pelicans a bit later as well. And also, some of you might have noticed, apart from the blue eyes of the angel and the woman as well, there's a little songbird here. It's like a nightingale or something, an iridescent metallic sheen of its plumage, singing its heart out against all the motion and heartfelt love and desire and passion as well, for the passion. And the plants themselves, you can see how well he delineated the different leaves of them. We've got one leaf here. You see the difference between these leaves here too? Again, quite accurate depiction of the variety of colours. And also the foreground goes into the background. You've got her long hair flowing, unbraided, untied. You've got this long scarf here that goes all the way around here as well. It's stunning. But what does it mean? Well, there's one clue, which is to do with the expressions of the two angels at the top here. So I've read this as a theory about it. He left no key. He just said it was the greenest painting ever made. It's definitely about passion and frustrated desire and love. By the way, the model he chose here, Alexa Wilding, another shop girl that he found, by this time he was massively overweight, lost all his looks, and he wrote in his diary that he didn't want to seduce her because she was too stupid for him. I think she won that one, to be honest. There we go. So we've also got here, by the way, these birds. So these are pelicans. Pelicans often feature in Christian iconography, pecking their chest. So you'll find them often putting blood from their chest and spouting down their breasts, and their young are suckling it. It was believed that pelicans would feed their young with their own blood, and that was a symbol for Christ's sacrifice as well. So interesting story there. So again, sacrifice and passion, etc. Now the two angels, if you look closely at their expressions, the interpretation I've read is that they are looking at two different ways of experiencing music, or the arts generally. So one on the right here, she's actually looking towards the harp frame, watching the fingering, looking at the notation. She's experiencing it more from an intellectual, almost an academic point of view. She's concentrating on the skill that was required to create it, and she's looking at the technique and the work that's gone into creating this effect. Whereas the angel here, she seems to be more rapt, she's more taken up, she's experiencing it emotionally. So it's the interpretation between intellect and emotion that is depicted by the two angels here as well. That's interpretation, I'm not sure. But I do love this painting. The artist also designed the frame as well. So you'll notice that these are almost Celtic-like or Arthurian bosses, symbolic. The painting has been on its travels. It was around the world. It went to an exhibition at the Tate Britain called the Rossettis. Did anybody go to see that one? And what I loved about that exhibition was how much it highlighted not just him, but his sister Christina, who is a notable artist in her own right, as great as him, some people say. She wasn't an artist, she was a poet, and her most famous poem, I suspect nearly all of you will have sung it. It's called In the Bleak Midwinter, which is often sung at Christmas as a Christmas carol as well. So on that note, I'd like to say thank you very much. Okay, excellent.